Well, welcome back to a little more with, this book, which is a transcribed publication of one of my teacher's talks that he gave in session one time, and it's quite a good talk. And anyone who's had an out-of-time experience and has experienced the great rays in any way, shape or form, I mean, they're only one particular way, shape and form, but in any regard, we'll be able to relate to this. It's kind of beyond A Course in Miracles. There's a lot of stuff that when Jesus says in the Course, this course is just a beginning, there is stuff that is personal and individualized within the Course. And then once you get beyond the Course, everything tends to lean towards the singular self. Well, I mean, it does in the Course, but the Course is aimed at restoring you to that understanding and that perception of the singular self, the altruistic vision. When that occurs, you become literally like revelation ready. Once you've had revelation, then what happens is your mind automatically, it's not like you're learning something new. You begin to remember not only what you are and where you are in revelation, but it's almost like remembering the steps that you went down a staircase into the third dimension, and then you're coming back up, and you start to have this familiarity with the process. So one of the things that happens in the Course is, and people call it deja vu, but it's not really deja vu. All that's happening is you're remembering parts of the script. You're remembering elements of the nature of your authorship of time and space, and also your co-authorship of the process of redemption, right? So one of those things occurs only through what seems to be the separated self, and the other one, of course, is a joining, a coming together with other minds, and I'm doing inverted commas with my fingers here, you can't see me, but other minds, for the purpose of salvation, which is joining. And you begin to kind of feel a certain way about things, a certain sense of things, and without mind training, of course, your ego just grabs a hold of all the feelings that you have going on within you and says, oh, this is this and this is that. I feel like I need alcohol, or I feel like I need sex, or I feel like I need, right? In order to justify, verify, and give context to what that need is, because the ego doesn't know what the feeling is, has no clue. All it knows is that something is occurring, and it tries to make sense of it, right? Once you give up listening to the ego, once you give up listening to that voice that's constantly judging everything, including the impulse, Jesus talks about those impulses in the Course as misguided miracle impulses. Once you learn to just let them be what they are without analyzing them and trying to pigeonhole them and make use of those impulses, they literally become the herald of God's presence within you as a kind of a energetic calling, an energetic, there's this thing, and you're kind of like, what is that? Why do I feel this? What is this thing I'm feeling? If I don't define it and I just leave it in its most raw kind of context, then how do I make sense of it, right? And 99% of the time, you'll experience it as a kind of an anxiety, an existential anxiety. It feels like it shows up as this kind of emptiness, right? And the temptation, of course, is to want to adjust to that emptiness, because emptiness or the unknown is fearful to the conceptual mind. But to the truth of you, to the true you, the Christ you, you know everything. You have nothing to fear. You're not afraid of anything. And during our satsang today, I was only there briefly for 30, 40 minutes, but I was mentioning like the Song of Prayer, and this is something I want to get more into in the coming videos and other satsangs we're doing. The Song of Prayer is literally the calling or the singing of, and it's expressed as a song, but the relationship between the Father and the Son, right? God and God's creation, which is not separate from each other. It's one thing, okay? But it's like the Creator and the creation. One doesn't exist without the other. But yet there seems to be, when I had my experience, my illumination in 97, and I've talked about this quite a lot of times, primarily, I guess, because it's the hub of everything, and plus there's not a great deal of info you can find out about this stuff, and you only have your own context through which to try and understand what I'm talking about. But there is God. So in that experience, there is God, and then there is the extension or the expression of God, which in that experience appeared to me almost like rays from the sun. You know, when you see them through the clouds and there's like distinct kind of rays because of the breaking up of the clouds and all that sort of thing. Well, like that, but at the same time, nothing like that. And I can't really describe it. There are no words to describe it because it's everything all at once. But in that experience, I remembered everything perfectly. I remembered myself. I remembered God, the nature of the universe, like the whole thing. The thing that I didn't remember perfectly or don't, like that's all Revelation is for, to restore to you that memory of God, right? But the lesser experiential, I mean, in Buddhism they call it samadhi. You have these kind of experiences, these lesser experiences as you go along the road to enlightenment, but they're just as profound, but they're always relative to where you're at in your own transformative process, and they help you to make sense of what it is you're going through, what it is you're processing, as an idea of the continuing of letting go of the temporal association and the continual of stepping into that new open moment where there's no definition upon it, no judgment, right? And in Buddhism, they call that no mind. So you're constantly learning to step into this place of no mind. It's not really no mind, because mind is everything. There is only mind, right? Or spirit. I mean, mind is the Greek word for the Latin, which is spirit. So mind and spirit is the same thing, okay? There is only spirit, right? Spirit, God, whatever. It's everything. Not God as in some separate kind of being, but God as in the force of life, the life force, the very essence of life, anyway. So in this transcript, Ted talks about the Great Rays and the Great Ray Association, and the way I understand it, I'm going to read you his impression of it, but the way I understand it is, if I use Jesus as the example and the 12 disciples, right? So in the Course it says there are 12 great rays extending out from God. When I experienced the great rays, I didn't have time to count them. I was so discombobulated, being out of my body, not knowing what was going on, and just totally like, what the? But the 12 great rays. So if you look at the 12 great rays, each ray is an association of the whole. Okay, so the 12 add up to the 13, which is the one, right? So the 12 become one through being 13. It's like the 12 tribes of Israel, they're stronger united than they are separated. Literally, as the 12 tribes, as one tribe, let's call that the 13th tribe. And the sum of the parts is greater than their individual content. All right, so with Jesus and with his 12 disciples, he handpicked each of those disciples. He called to them specifically, those guys, to follow him because they each had a certain value. They each had a specific association. They had a specific ray association, if you want to call it that, because you're not a body. You are a being of light. You are a light creation. And I don't know how to talk about that, but really you have to experience it for yourself. But each of us, let's say, has a familiar or a more familiar vibratory association with one of the 12 great rays, comprising a part of, and I'm looking at this from my own perspective with my finger on my nose here, comprising part of my own individual story. So if the idea of a Dave, like, were to go back 2,000 odd years and wander around the hills up here, and I would pick out 12 people, right? Now, sometimes this happens in satsang. It happens in when we do, and I could never do this before, and I don't know how I do it now. It just seems to be some sort of spontaneous thing. But I can look at people, and sometimes even when I talk to people or whatever, and I get a sense of their vibration. I get a sense, and it's like it's in a more dull version of that. You can say, well, this person's an angry person, or this person's generally a happy person, or whatever. But it's more than that. It's almost like has a color attributed to it. There's almost like a tone attributed to it. Ted used to say there's only 12 types of us. There's 12 personalities, and we're all mutations of a single kind. Well, in healing, what you're doing is you're representing the hub of a wheel, and I used the analogy of a pizza this morning, which I don't know if that was a great analogy, but it'll do for a start, I guess. But if you imagine the hub of an old wheel, and then you have all the spokes, there's 12 spokes, but it takes all 12 spokes to make the wheel, right? Some of those spokes can be made out of this wood, and then if you run out of that wood, different woods, and here's another bad analogy. But every spoke has its individual property. Some has a knot in them, some have a bit of mold or dirt on them, I don't know, whatever. But you literally turn up in the circle with Jesus exactly as you are, with all your lumps and bumps, right? With all your shortcomings, all your grievances, all your everything, and you don't have to worry about that. But you turn up simply willing to participate as part of the Great Ray Association of Jesus, let's say, or of Dave, right? Or of, if you're doing this for yourself, having your own individual metaphysical transformative experience, you'll go through these relationships, and Jesus says in the Course, it's like specific contacts have been prepared for you or presented or arranged for you to meet, and who you're meant to meet, you will meet. Right? So it's not like you have to go around the village and, like, I need 2 fishermen, I need a tax collector, I need some guy that's going to stab me in the back for 30 pieces of silver and all of this sort of stuff. It's like, it's going to happen now. Jesus has organized it, and all you're doing is saying yes to him as the head of the atonement. And he's like, right, we need to get you 12 guys, right? And I'm just ad-libbing a little bit there, but it's kind of like that. And then you go through what seems to play out as your transformation, and you have these relationships, right? And they're all relationships in salvation, because that's the new purpose that you're operating under, and that's the new way that you're telling yourself you want to see things as being helpful to you in your own transfiguration, your own transformation, and therefore automatically being helpful in the association of those relationships as you go through the particulars of bringing them from a separated state into a state of wholeness or holiness, right? So the purpose of relationships is to make them holy. and it doesn't have to be 12, right? But the particulars of stepping into a healing circle, let's say like we do with our sessions here, and we're going to do at our, and I'll record it so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But in February, we've got a 2-day intensive and we're going to do a healing circle there. It doesn't need that there's 12 people, right? Because as you're willing to simply step in and be used, the Holy Spirit can use you to represent 2 or 3 of those rays. But I guarantee that whoever shows up will be the exact amount of people that's meant to show up for the purpose that we've dedicated that to. And that's how metaphysics works. There's never any doubt about anything. Everything is always for the highest purpose, and you cannot not proceed or go further or come out from whatever it is that you're doing, because there's a listen, learn and do component. You cannot not come out further ahead through the doing on behalf of Jesus, behalf of the atonement here, than when you went in, right? You literally come out of it with a greater understanding and a higher resonance than when you went in. That higher resonance is not like a frequency where you just get hot. Well, it is, but it's not like you're, how can I put this? It's not like when you're playing a flute and you're going up the notes and you're trying to hit the highest note you can. It's more that you're integrating or associating in the separated elements of the ray association that is available to you in that circle at that time, right? So, and overall, the entirety of the relationship as the 12 is healed as one, right? Now, I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway, I'm going to read Ted's. When I had my experience in the Godhead, the 12 rays were all identical to me. Like I was actually in one of them. I don't know how to talk about that. Oh, my head is buzzing right now. I as mind and as the whole, I and he and me, I was all of it, and at the same time I was seemingly part of it or a creation of it. But I was in, I don't know how to, I was one of those rays. And I was in the ray, and there was also in me a recognition that in my specific ray, even though they weren't separate from any other, I wasn't separate from any other ray. How do I put this? Everyone that had the same ray association as me was in that ray with me, and everyone else that I've ever met on earth has been part and parcel of one of the other rays, as, let's say, fragments of a whole. And I can only kind of see it that way. I mean, I don't have a way to talk about it. It's sort of like a visual in my mind. And but I think going back 2,000 years, when Jesus walked the planet and said, you, follow me, more than likely, as the head of the atonement, his mind was completely open to the whole deal, and he would have been able to more than likely see the ray association, or more than likely he just knew the ray association of each person and called them out as a singular representative of that particular ray, and gave himself an even coding, or an even I don't even know, I'm just guessing here, but an even, like when I couldn't specifically handpick 12. I just stand there and give myself to the Holy Spirit and trust that whoever's come is the 12, right? Because Jesus is orchestrating this now. But he also orchestrated it when he walked the earth. So, and that's kind of getting a little aside, but I want to read Ted's thing here. In the last video of this book, How It Works, which is only 50 pages or something, not even, I don't think. It's, what are we up to here? Oh, it's not even, it's 21 pages. In the last bit, just covering, and if you haven't, I'll see if Tina can put these two videos together. It's just basically the last 3 or 4 pages was in the last video, and it was an introduction. So I'm going to start from fresh. All right, this is Ted. If you looked at the idea of a great ray association as being a less dense version of what everything is and how everything is being manufactured or returning to creation, you would begin to understand that somewhere in you, you are part of the great ray association. And I totally understand that. At the moment the separation occurred, the bastardization of the true types of the great rays took place through mutation, let's say, at the further fall into the material reality as you think you know it now. The return to your true home is the truing up of who you are in the ray association and the utilization of yourself as a ray in the whole of the ray association. As we come together as a greater association, each one of you is capable of taking your place as one of the rays within the ray association. Right, that's what I was just saying. When the 12 are gathered in the midst of the one, lucky number 13, what goes on is all the permutations of the ray association. That was how the world was manufactured as a systematic definition of space-time. They have the ability of coming back together into a single factoring that leads beyond the world and returns you back to creation, which is exactly what happened when the world disappeared and I found myself back in eternity. Okay, continuing. Somewhere, each and every one of you fit into that configuration. Look at this as if you were a hybrid. Reality is the single all-creative light of God. It is a single light. In the fracturism through the crystal or the glass darkly, inverted commas, it takes on ray association and there is apparently one represented as 12. It's actually only 7, but 7 becomes the 12 because there has to be some connection back to reality. The esoteric tradition always taught that as there were 5 that remained true and 7 down here that entered into material reality, which the Course now tells you is a denial of reality. You have a 7 great ray association that has to begin to perform and function in the totality of ray association, which necessitates the 12 rays coming back together. It's the idea of the rainbow. What I want you to understand is this. My explanation of the happening has been shown to me as a continuing revelation of myself to the consciousness association that seems to be the self in space-time as the self that was previously encapsulated as a spark in containment. As unity occurs, my mind opens to the totality of creative reality. The principles that allow the continuing occurrence in me are the principles that Jesus teaches throughout A Course in Miracles. What is revealed to me is myself, capital S, but is also an illuminating presence of self, capital S, which lights the way for you to become part of the atonement in your own conscious awareness, which is the salvation of the world and how everything is returned back to creative reality to be recognized and reconciled with God. So just stopping for a second in there. So he's talking singularly, right? So what is revealed to me is myself, but is also an illuminating presence of self, which lights the way for you, right? Now it splits into duality, which lights the way for you to become part of the atonement in your own conscious awareness, right? So when your light is activated, when you're in the activity of reassociation, anyone who joins with you cannot not begin to get the effect of that, because it's like all of a sudden, it's like magnets, right? there's old Eastern traditions that says if you wanna wake up, go find yourself an awakened mind and hang around them, right? It's like horses in a paddock. If you put a bunch of random horses together in a paddock, eventually what happens is they gravitate to the dominant one, and they take on the characteristics of the dominant one. It's the same in tribal culture, right? The chief is always the strongest, wisest, and all of that sort of thing. And everybody looks up to the chief and wants to become like the chief, because that has the best guarantee of the survival of the tribe, right? So, where are we at? All right, so now each and every one of you in the fall, let's call it for a second, somewhere formed the illusion of material reality, making space-time based on the idea of separation as the fracturedism through the dark crystal, and literally formed an association of 12. That is what the rainbow becomes as they mix and match. That mixing and matching, as it is fractured into greater and greater objectivity of form association, and that's the apparency of evolution in time, is what allows you to evolve to the point where we can even talk about it now. It's sort of a vice versa happening simultaneously. What went on is this: you lost your true type. There was no true representative of the single light, so there could be no true typing of you as an individual in a true ray association. There is mutation, or you become a mutt. There are no true breds here. You're all mutts, and it's all been inbreeding ever since. So what happens is you become a mutt and you lose the true type that you are, which is why it is so very difficult for you to know yourself in space and time. Now, just stop for a second. One of the things in that, right, so where he says you've been getting diluted and diluted from your true type over and over again every lifetime, my understanding of all of that is that if you give yourself enough time here, eventually everybody interbreeds and the true type actually forms through becoming this kind of homogenous association of humanity that no longer has separations of race, culture, anything else. It's like non-terrestrial life forms have a singular sense of themselves, right? So it's only humanity that seems to need to use judgment and separation as a form of definition to try and carve out an individual sense of self, whereas in other non-terrestrial life species, that doesn't happen. Everyone's part of a whole, right? So, and the other thing, where was it? Hang on. You become a mutt. It's all inbreeding. There was something else. Oh, so what I was talking about earlier. So we've got somebody in our Zoom group, a young girl who's recently joined, who is probably, and this is how I don't know how I know this, but I always have a pretty good idea about, so in the same way that Jesus could have picked his 12 and said, right, you're this ray, you're that ray, you're whatever. I don't know how I know anything, but I just sometimes seem to get these insights or these prompts, and I guess you could just say, well, you're guided by spirit, and that would be true. But there's this one person in our Zoom who doesn't seem to have a great deal of mixing and matching in their own association. They seem to be closer to a true type, and I'm just using this context. It's as if they've only had one incarnation, right? Which, or one, and to use reincarnation as the context, it's as if they've had very, very little time-space experience, like they've come directly from the separation moment into time and space. Like, there's almost a true type there. And I'm very excited by that. I don't know if that's it, but there's There's something, and I feel it because everybody has a vibration, everybody has an energy about them. And I just feel this particular one. And there's other guys in our Zoom group, like Tyna has a very particular ray association to me, and I love it so much. But I mean, I love everyone and everything so much. But it's exciting to have minds showing up who are so diversely, I want to say useful, I don't know if that's the right word, diversely compatible as different parts of the same thing, which is like the ray association. I guess that's the only place I can go with it. But it's just exciting to me, that's all. There was somebody else today that was in the Zoom, and because I was only there for a short time, I didn't get a chance to talk to him. There was a bald guy who also has a very specific frequency about him. So, I mean, everybody does, but it's just nice that, and I guess that's natural because I've been going through my own process. You become more sensitive and more tuned into what's going on beyond the form, rather than looking at the form and seeing someone who might be doing a Course in Miracles, because that's not true at all, right? That's just more illusion. It's an illusion of healing, right? But when you look beyond the illusion, when you look beyond the form association, you just see the energetic of somebody, you just see the harmony or the resonance of somebody, you realize, wow, this person, like with the idea of music, this person's a G note, and this person's a D note, and this person's an A or an A minor, and whatever. I don't know how music goes, but you could do it in terms of colors. So, and some people see auras, you know, like some people I've met see auras and say, oh, you've got a blue aura or green one or whatever. And I've had that happen so often. People have said to me about my aura and other auras, and I go to all these sort of festivals and things, so it's not surprising, but it's the same way, but I just don't see an aura. I just feel a vibration, and I can't talk about it because I don't have an education about it. It seems to be a random thing. Anyway, let's get back to this. So when we come together in our energetic reformation, which is when we do a light session, in the acceptance of the circle of atonement as our way out of the dilemma of separation, which is no space and time at all, what happens is you get to play a part as a representative of a ray. So here I am as a representative of the fact that there is one true source of light, no other light is there, and everything, even the dream of space and time itself, is a function of that light, right? But not at the direction of the light itself as a creative possibility, no, as a degeneration in the misuse of the creative totality into possibilities of fragmentation. So I can sit here for a second as that, okay? Let me be that for a moment in this configuration that is occurring, and what happens is somebody can come in and decide to accept his place in the relationship to me as that light, and true himself up as a ray association within that light and perform as a true type. If I got together 7 or 12 who were just willing to fulfill the part required of them, not determined by them as what they want, but decided upon by the actual action of the atonement as a return, I would get 7 or 12 who just willingly played any part at all to fit into the circle, and they would have full experience of being fully part of the circle, just as the light is a full experience of the totality of what reality is, as well as reenacting the entirety of the separation through the ability to fragment into a circle outside of eternity and space-time. That's incredible stuff. And I remember Ted used to put that into practice. It's not just talk. So and I do the same thing when we do our anyone who's coming to the 2-day intensive will definitely experience it. But when I was with Ted all those years, and every day we would do a standing meditation, Everyone would just sort of come together as a group in that idea of joining in that circle, in that healing circle. I mean, sometimes when I first started going there, the room was like there'd be 100 people in there, 120 maybe, and then it was packed. And then at other days, you'd have maybe 30 or 40 people in there, etc. But still, the circle was just as powerful. You would have stuff going on, but you would have guys that were like particularly, I would call them, and other guys around would have called them the core, right? They were it's like in our Zoom meetings, there's me, Tyna, and a couple of other guys that we call the lovelies now, who are beginning to form an energetic core of an association of a healing circle, right? And everyone is useful and has their own individual input to that circle, despite that they're going in and out of their own healing and going through all this shit and everything. That doesn't matter. All that matters is that you are willing to stay true to the circle, and the healing happens automatically to bring you back in again and again and again. And it's like it said in reading that thing by Ted, you begin to operate as a true type. Right? Now, the difficulty that I have with this, it's not really a difficulty, the ism, the concern, it's not a concern. What I've noticed in this anyway, it's more, it's not difficult, but it's more, I don't seem to be able to put my finger on the pulse of it as much when we do a light session, or when we do, because it's not a true light session as I recognize it as a physical proximity thing. But when we do it online, it's different. Guys still have experiences, and our next Zoom, we're going to do a really long one, and there's going to be a massive light session at the end. Gongs or no gongs if you're in today's Zoom. But it's like literally that's how it functions. You just turn up and you're willing to, because you want to be healed and you want to be a healer, and you don't want anyone to suffer. So whatever your association is and the relationships that you have within your own association has to be purified in you as part of the way it is that you begin to function as a true type, or as from your true ray association within the circle, within the gathering. And it's all part and parcel. As you are willing to learn how to heal, as you are willing to heal, you also become healed, right? The bottom line on all of that is physician, heal thyself. There's no one out there to heal. You're healing your mind of relationships that seem to exist in the fracturedism of the light out there as separated relationships, but you're healing them in your own mind as one relationship through those different contacts that you're given to make, and that you will make through the journey, if you like, in your healing journey. And I think I'm going to leave it there. There's probably a little bit more I could say, but I wanted to, I really want to bring it around, bring all of this around into music. I really want to bring all of this around into sound, because I've been getting a very strong prompt with the gongs, and I was talking about this a few times with Tyna and even in the Zoom today, with the resonance of it's not the gong itself, it's the resonance, the tones of the gong. And I'd been asking, right, prior to getting this whole prompt and thing for the gongs, I had been asking for a way to produce, I guess, or bring about some kind of similar result with our online meditations that we used to get and do get still in our meditations that are of a physical nature, where we're all in physical proximity with each other. And it's occurring to me more and more that through music, through this resonant frequencies of the gongs and whatever, everyone's hearing the same thing, right? It's when I'm teaching online and when I'm doing stuff online, everyone's hearing what I'm saying from wherever they're at in their own understanding of their own process, which can be some guys up, some guys down, some guys have no clue what I'm saying, other guys are like yawning because they've heard it all before and whatever. But when you play music, when you hit a gong, Everyone hears exactly the same thing, and I'm just getting this sense that that is kind of the unifying call, or the unifying factor in what this is to be about. And I don't know, don't quote me. At this stage, it's kind of like, well, I'll just do the next thing, take the next step, and we'll see. But because everything has the purpose of healing, I know somewhere that there's going to be this thing. And because I've asked for a true purpose, I've asked for a way to make it so in our meditations, this cannot not be part of that, right? All things by the grace of God. All things by the grace of God. So anyway, that's it. I love you, and I will read a little bit more of that. We'll do another video of that later on down the track. Don't worry too much about it. Don't focus on it. Don't be jumping up and down saying, how do I get a copy of that book, whatever. For now, just read your course book, right? Read the teacher's manual specifically, which is what I'm being directed to tell everyone to read in the last couple of days anyway, 3 or 4 days. Read the teacher's manual, read the Song of Prayer, do your lessons, and just keep turning up, right? Involve yourself in Course in Miracles activities, things, whatever. There's heaps of stuff online. You'll know if it's cool. You'll know if you get a vibe for it or not. And just sort of trust that, listen to your heart, and go with whatever that is. But literally, Jesus is the head of the atonement. Salvation of humanity is proceeding along the lines of the atonement right now in this thing that we have called the Great Awakening. However you are approaching it from, whether you're approaching it through Buddhism or Hinduism or whatever, it doesn't matter, Christianity, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, those vibrations of those religious aspects of things will dry up for you, and you'll be looking for what's next. I feel like I've gone as far as I can go with this, and you'll end up in an empty space again, and you'll be directed, right? So, and it may, more than likely, it'll be to do with the Course in Miracles. But since it is the highest teaching on the planet at the moment, in terms of being able to save you time, etc., collapse time. All right, that's it. Yep, that's it. Love you guys, and I'll see you in whatever other throughout the week, maybe, and definitely next Monday in the Zoom, which will be a big one. All right, peace.